Welcome once again. This is the fourth in our series. I just wish I could see you as you see me and hopefully recognize the effect that these talks have on you, because I know that the concepts are absolutely mind-blowing. We thank God to the efforts of David Birnbaum, as I've told you numerous times, have the series of 10 books on the major subjects that should and probably do occupy the minds and thinking of intelligent people. And you know, as I've told you several times as well, we have, thank God, 150 to 180 of the top Jewish scholarly minds that have approached these issues and given of their wisdom and their insights in the books put out by the Mesorah Matrix series. The one that we are up to today, right here, is on Birkat Kohanim, edited by David Birnbaum and Martin S. Cohen. Birkat Kohanim literally means the blessings of the priests. Kohanim are the rabbis of old. Kohanim were the original spiritual leaders. Kohanim were the priests, a hereditary position, groups selected to serve as the spiritual teachers of the Jewish people. But there's far more than that. And in the essays, some of what I'm going to be telling you is explored in deeper and more profound ways. But I want to pull out what I consider are the most important ideas of Birkat Kohanim, both in terms of the blessings as well as the concept of Kohanim, in a way that has great meaning for us, for the world today. I said to you that the Kohanim are a distinct, special group within the Jewish people. The Jews are divided into Kohanim, the descendants of Aaron, brother of Moses, the Leviim, the Levites, who are descendants of the other children of Levi, one of the 12 sons of Jacob, Israel, and then the rest of the Israelites. The Kohanim, obviously, are quantitatively a small part of the Jewish people, who still to this day carry an obligation of spiritual leadership. Now, what's fascinating is that when the Jews came to Mount Sinai to receive the Torah, God said to Moses and to tell the Jewish people, here's the deal. I'm going to give you my values, my ideals. I'm going to teach you. Why am I teaching you? The rest of the world doesn't seem to want it. They're not ready for it. And then God said, the contract between me and you is, the atem tiyuli, and you, the Jewish people, shall be to me mamlechet kohanim, a kingdom of priests, for God kadosh, and a holy nation. Now, what's remarkable is, as I've just told you, the Jews are not all Kohanim, far from it. Most of us are not Kohanim. I'm an Israelite. I'm not a Kohen. Yet God said to the Jewish people in entirety, and that's the basis of the deal, you are going to be, to me, a kingdom of priests, Kohanim. How do we understand that? And one of the giants of Jewish philosophy, Yehuda Halevi, explained in the following way. What God said to Moses then was, what the Kohanim are to the rest of the Jewish people, the spiritual guides, the religious leadership, the Jewish people in entirety are to be to the rest of the world. Jews have a mission, and the mission is to be a kingdom of Kohanim, of priests. And that idea is so crucial because it defines and clarifies for us the answer to a fascinating question. Is Judaism universalistic or is it particularistic? Is it universalistic? Is it meant to be something for the entire world? Or is it for a small group of people? Amazing. The rabbis tell us that the Torah was given on Mount Sinai in the wilderness, in the desert of Sinai. Now, the Jews were on the way out of Egypt, going to the land of Israel. Israel is the Holy Land. Here's the question. Why did God use an out-of-the-way place in the middle of the desert, which is no man's land, to give the Torah? They were going, and the trip should have lasted only 11 days, were it not for the story of the spies, as a result of which the Jews were condemned to wander in the desert for 40 years. But they would shortly be in the Holy Land of Israel. Why didn't God give the Holy Torah in the Holy Land? That's the question. And the answer is then the Jews might have assumed that the Torah, the guide for living, the perfect prescription from God for a healthy life, was meant for one land, one country, one people. The desert is owned by no one. I called it no man's land, and therefore it is every man's land. All people have equal access to it. And the Torah was given in the desert to show that the Torah is not meant as the Jewish constitution for the Jewish land, but is rather meant from God as the constitution for life for all peoples and all humankind. That's a remarkable idea. That is a universalistic idea par excellence. It is the idea that we find in the final line of every single Jewish prayer, which is a quote from the prophet Zechariah. And we always say, B'ne'emar, V'hoyad Hashem lamelech al kol ha'aretz, God will be king over the whole world. Bayom hahu, in that day, Hi Hashem echad u'shmo echad, God will be one and his name will be one. One God. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. God for the whole world. God's values are meant for everyone. How are we going to get past the barrier of so many people not knowing and therefore not living life correctly, not finding happiness, not finding meaning, not finding spirituality? What is the role of the Jew? To be a kingdom of priests. One more time, what the Kohanim were for the rest of the Jewish people were meant to be for the rest of the world. We are to be the teachers of mankind because, and I keep repeating this concept in different ways, it's the concept of David Birnbaum's Summa, and it's a concept that seems to be behind everything in Judaism. Judaism views history as a journey with a defined end, and that is the fulfillment of potential. Now, the Jews receive the Torah. They are not meant to hold on to it, live it, and that be the end of it. They are meant to be the conduits to the larger world, because history has an ending which is called destiny, and destiny is the Messianic era. That concept is Jewish. That concept says there is a built-in potential to humankind's drive to come closer to God and to live life as it should be lived. The goal of the Jewish people is to be the representatives of God in all the lands of their dispersion. I dare say that probably explains why Jews have had to be scattered throughout the world, as the Midrash puts it. When a farmer has very good seed, he scatters it all over so that all the lands would be able to produce that quality. The world without God is a wasteland. The Jews have a role. Our role is to be the Kohanim, to bring the world to fulfillment of its potential. That's the first part of this talk. And that's a fundamental concept that makes Judaism the most universal of all religions. Now let's do the second part. The name of the book covering this subject is Birkat Kohanim, the blessing of the priests. The priests were told a specific text with which they were to bless the people. It is a famous blessing. It is used by Jews. It is used by non-Jews. It's familiar to almost everyone. It's a tripartite blessing, a three-part blessing. That means there are three ideals. When you read it carefully, though, it is a three-part blessing which really is comprised of three ideas which have two sides to them. That is to say, there are 6 ideas altogether. Every blessing has an addendum or a qualifier. Let's clarify. Yivarechecha Hashem v'yishmerecha. May the Lord bless you and guard you. First, now, we have a concept of the written Torah and the oral law, that is to say, the fuller explanation of the words of the Bible were transmitted orally. And when you have that word, Yivarechecha, may the Lord bless you, what does it imply? What is the blessing that we're talking about? Fascinatingly enough, the blessing is material. The blessing is the things that we need from a strictly and purely materialistic basis, because we need food, we need lodging, we need clothing. We need the things that our body needs. And we should not disdain that. Those are valid wants. Those are needs that need to be filled. And so the Kohanim, the priests, blessed the people, Yivarechecha Hashem, say the commentators in the Talmud, with material abundance. And then comes the added word, the necessary word for that blessing, v'yishmerecha, and may he protect you. Why does that come right after material abundance? Because, again, the rabbis in their brilliance understood, material blessings are a blessing which can also contain within them a curse. I just saw the movie The Founder, the founder of McDonald's. His wife said to him early in the game, "You seem obsessed with getting more and more and more money and more money, more money. When is enough? When will you have enough?" And he said, there will never be enough. For some people, fulfillment of material wishes is unbounded, infinite, and so they're never happy. They are never happy because they are not protected from this all-consuming drive that wants to gain more and more at the expense of family, at the expense of values, at the expense of anything that is holy, at the expense of what God would want them to be like. I sat in that movie and watched the story of Ray Kroc, again, founder of McDonald's, who stole the idea from 2 brothers who mistreated the real founders in a despicable and immoral way and stole everything from them, made a handshake promise that they would always be given royalties, which ended up amounting to $100 million a year, and he reneged on that promise. And you stop and think, wouldn't anybody at first glance say that Ray Kroc is a fulfillment of the American dream? He had it all, and think about the amount of money in the countless billions. Ray Kroc had Yivarechecha Hashem, may the Lord bless you, but he didn't have the Yishmerecha, and may he protect you and guard you, meaning protect you from what wealth can do to you, which might be destructive. The rabbis call money a coin of fire. That's a powerful image. Now, why do they compare money to fire? Because fire has a dual quality. Fire is the most destructive and the most constructive. We became human when we learned how to control fire. But fire can also burn everything down and destroy everything that we have. And the rabbis were trying to teach us that wealth is a blessing when it's used the right way and a curse when it's misused. And that's what the priests say first in the initial portion of the priestly blessing. For material goods, but let the shekel, that's Hebrew for the coin, be a shekel hakodesh, a holy shekel. That's important, very important. The second part of the blessing is at least as important. Yo'er ad Hashem ponav elecha v'chuneka. Yo'er Hashem ponav elecha, may the Lord cause his light to shine upon you, v'chuneka, and be gracious unto you. What is the light of God? It's spiritual. If the first part of the blessing is for material good, the second is to grant us not just a living, but a reason for living. Is to grant us the spiritual dimension that makes us human, or more than human, a little bit divine in the image of God. We need to be infused with the spiritual. I'll tell you what we need. Do you know that we got the spiritual when God took from the dust of the earth, that's our body, and blew into it of his spirit? And that's the neshama, the soul. We have a soul. What is the moment of death? I've been present when people died, and I watched when that last breath went out and they expired. Spiritus is breath. The Latin is breath. And it's interesting that we say when someone dies, he expired, his breath went out. And with his breath went his neshama, his soul. And what am I getting at? But when we are alive, in order to have a reason for living, we need to be inspired. Not expire, but inspire. We need some of that breath of God which comes to us from spiritual directions, through prayer, through study, through watching this video. We can become inspired, and that means we have soul food. Our soul becomes enriched. Just as our body needs food, our soul needs food. Spirituality is a very great blessing. It makes us aware that we are more than flesh and blood. We are flesh and blood plus soul. But the tragedy is when we misuse spirituality, we can commit the greatest crimes of history. By misusing God to foster cruel and unworthy ends, we had crusades, pogroms, the World Trade Center falling down, all ostensibly because of the will of God. Even as God weeps for the misuse of his name, for misusing God for evil ends. And that is why we say, Yo'er Hashem panav elecha, may God cause his light to shine upon you. May you be filled with divine wisdom and divine inspiration. But vichuneka, may it be with chen, may it be with favor, may it be in ways that do not make God angry or ashamed of having his name associated with what you are doing. Having said these two items in the blessing of the priest, the Birkat Kohanim, we now come to the ultimate ideal, and that is Aristotelian in thought. Aristotle taught us something, and Maimonides agreed with it, and I think almost all people of reason recognize it as true. Truth is to find the great balance between two extremes. To find the balance in everything is to make peace between the ends which represent the carrying too far of this or of that. Happiness is the result of true balance, and balance is shalom. Shalom is making peace between. Oseh shalom bimromav hu yaseh shalom olenu. He who makes peace above, in Shomayim, and Shomayim, we say, is a contraction of the words Eish and Mayim, fire and water. They're two extremes. And God is able to bring them together to be harmoniously at one. We need to be able to reconcile the bodily aspects of our nature, the bodily aspects which require food and drink and the pleasures of the flesh, and the spiritual aspect of our essence, which requires our being in peace and in harmony with God and having spiritual fulfillment. To bring those together, Yisa Shem Panov Elecha v'Yosem Lecha Shalom, is the conclusion of the priestly blessings. There's a remarkable law. When the priests lift their hands to bless the Jewish people, we are not permitted to look at them. Tradition says you go blind if you look at them. What in the world does that mean? If you think that they are giving you a blessing, you are blinded to the truth. They are the vehicles for transmitting the divine blessings. They mouth the words that the Torah tells us they must say in order to teach us how to lead a good and fulfilling life. And having said that, if you recall what I taught you at the outset, since Judaism is a universalistic religion, and we are to be the priests for all mankind, what the Kohanim are to us, we are to be to the rest of the world, then these are the ideals, the truths that we have an obligation to teach the entire world so that they can fulfill their potential and come to that final stage of human destiny of understanding of God in order to live an ideal life of perfect balance and harmony.